There we go. Look at that. Good at this, mate. Right, so protein. It's the most satiating out of all three macros. So out of all three, it's what's going to make you feel fullest the longest. It takes a long time to digest, and it has the highest TEF. So TEF is thermic effect of feeding. Get your heads out. So that essentially means whenever you consume food, whatever that food is, you require calories to break that food down, digest it, and take it to wherever it needs to go, whatever its role is within the body. Depending on what it is you're consuming, whether it's protein, carbs, or fat, it will have a different TEF. Protein being the highest. So if you look there at the table, about 20 to 30% of the calories you consume through protein will be used to actually digest the protein, compared to 5 to 6% with carbs and 2 to 3% with fat. Again, so this shows how much protein's satiating by taking that time with digestion and requiring that extra calories to be able to digest it and use it and utilize it. Obviously, everyone always goes on about protein, but why? It's the main source of growth and repair for your muscles. So once the protein in the meats or the vegan sources are broke down and digested, they're then shuttled off to your muscles, but they're also shuttled off to all of the cells in your body are made up of proteins. So that outer part of a cell, if you remember back to biology in school, that is made up of protein. So not only are your muscles being repaired from being damaged from training and stuff like that, but as your cells regenerate in your body, your protein's being used to help regenerate and repair cells. So it is really important that we try and hit our protein intake every day. If you're training harder, regardless of whether that's in the gym or at the moment, if you're training hard at home, your protein needs are higher. If you're creating muscle damage, whatever that's through, whether it's through running, home workouts, bodyweight exercises, whatever it is, you're creating a certain amount of muscle damage, muscle tissue damage, and that requires repair, which requires your protein to be higher. If you don't meet that protein requirement, the muscles can't repair back to the state they were at. They can't grow. So that's when you start getting muscle atrophy, where the muscles become smaller because there just isn't enough protein available for you to be able to adequately repair the damage in both the muscles and the cells.
If you think of your muscles as just layers and layers and layers of protein, and every time you go to the gym and you do damage, obviously you're damaging those layers of protein, because obviously they're all the actual muscle cells have got protein in there, and they're made up of amino acids basically. So if you think of like your 100% protein, every time you go to the gym and damage them, you're damaging. So in order to then get back to that 100% protein, that's why you need to bring the protein back in to basically make the muscles strong again.
Perfect. Yeah, what he said. So to create body composition changes, we need higher training intensity and we need higher training frequency. To facilitate this, we need a minimum protein threshold. So like we've just said, if you're training more, you're going to need more protein. You're causing more muscle damage, so you're going to need more protein to meet those requirements. So like I've just spoke about, how much do you need? So reduction in AA, so that's your amino acids. So a protein is made up of amino acids. You've got essential amino acids and you've got non-essential amino acids. So you've got like BCAAs, BCAAs. You'll see the sports drinks, a lot of them sold everywhere. You also can buy EAAs, which are essential amino acids. These are the ones that your body can't produce naturally. So most of the amino acids that are in a BCAA, you can produce from within your body, whereas the EAAs, the essential amino acids, you have to get from protein sources, whether that's from EAA powders, whether that's from the protein sources that you consume, your whey proteins, your meats, your vegan sources. you need a full spectrum of EAAs. So you need all of the EAAs, all the essential amino acids to produce muscle protein synthesis. If there's some missing, you won't maximize muscle protein synthesis. This is where the proteins are being used to repair and grow muscles. That's the process. So a deficiency is when there's a reduction in AA oxidation. So when there isn't enough proteins being oxidized and used, they will go to the essential organs. They will go to where's needed first. Your body's really smart, so it doesn't see muscle building as a primary function. It's not a survival thing for you to look like Arnie. It will go to your vital organs, heart, liver, everything that you require to be able to survive and stay alive. That's where the proteins will go first until they're fully repaired, and then it will move on to your muscles and everywhere else that requires it. So if you're not getting enough protein, you're going to see muscle loss, you're going to see muscle atrophy. So accommodation, if you are just hitting your bare minimum of protein, all necessary physiological processes take place. So that basically means you are at base level. All your vital organs are getting the right amount of protein, and all your muscle tissue is getting just enough protein to stay exactly the way it is now, which obviously through training and stuff is not what we want. If we're looking for body changes, if you're looking to progress and you're looking to get stronger, you're looking to change the way your body is, then we need to be in the adaptation bracket of our protein intake. So this is where there's sufficient enough protein to result in optimal enzyme production and protein synthesis, big word. So once your muscles have reached back to their base level, so homeostasis, which your body is constantly trying to reach, which is just a state of like levelness, everything is where it needs to be. Once it's reached there, the remaining protein can then be used to help build and repair, build your muscles, and then excess protein doesn't really have any benefit on muscle growth. It will more protein, more amino acids will be oxidized, but protein synthesis isn't increased, so you won't get better protein synthesis. I cannot get that word out at all tonight.
No,
I'm just going to say
every time you need to say synthesis, I'll say synthesis for you, and then you can carry on then.
So for my slow brain tonight, I'm just going to use MPS instead of muscle protein synthesis because I can't get them three words out in a row. So with excess protein, you don't increase MPS. There is like a top level of MPS. Once you've hit that, you won't go any higher. Once for your amount of muscle mass, for your size, for your build, there will be like a top floor. Once you've hit that, adding more protein in won't make that any better. The only thing it really will do is burden your digestive system because it's so taxing to digest and to process. The excess protein still needs to be digested, but it's got nowhere to go. So it then has to travel through your intestines and out the back end. This is where a lot of people's pretty gross, but if you fart a lot during the day, chances are it's coming from having too much protein. You always hear people say, oh, you've been having protein shakes, your farts stink. Yeah. It's because that whole thing of, oh, well, I go to the gym now, so I need to take loads of protein. And people just hitting past that top floor of how much protein they need to take. With that comes slower digestion, feeling bloated, and then the other things that you consume and the other foods, so your carbs and your fats, are going to not be absorbed as efficiently because your digestion is slowed down and it's struggling to digest the excess protein. So trying to find that sweet spot for each individual is really important. Not enough and your muscles aren't going to grow, but too much and you're going to get digestive issues down the line. So calculating how much protein you need, it's very person dependent, but it does differ a lot between males and females. So like the government RDA is 0.36 grams per pound or 0.8 grams per kilogram. This is for normal people and to prevent protein deficiency. But we're training. We're not trying to be normal. We're trying to progress. So that's not enough. That's for you to just stay as you are. What's recommended for most people who train, for men, anywhere between 1 and 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, that is, and females 0.8 to 1 grams. It can go higher in females. Females just tend to digest it a little bit, not as efficiently, sorry. So if a female's protein's higher than 1 gram per pound, the first thing you're going to run to is digestive issues from the protein rather than other things. The quality of the proteins is also important. You have different levels of digestibility depending on what the protein is. I can't for the life of me think of what the term's called. Can you, Tom, for how they scale the digestibility of protein?
Let me.
You know what I'm on about? Yeah. No, can't think of it. It will come to me by the end of it, and I'll explain to you. But if you understand, like with carbs, there's a score for diabetics on how quickly it's digested and how quickly it turns to sugar in the blood. Protein sort of works the same. It's scored from 0 to 100, 100 being the most easily digestible, down to 0, it being like terrible for you. The most easily digestible source of protein is whey protein. It's the closest that protein will get to it being a protein molecule within your body. So it doesn't need to be broken down as much as, say, chicken breast or turkey or through like beans and stuff like that. Next one down is eggs, surprisingly. Especially egg whites. Once the fat is taken out the eggs and it's just the protein from the egg white, eggs are second on the table for being the most easily digestible. So the quality does matter, especially if your protein is quite high. So if you're quite heavy, if you've got quite a lot of muscle mass and you're trying to consume quite a lot of protein. So for me, my daily protein set at like 270 grams a day. If I was getting that from really poorly digestible sources, not slagging off vegans, but it does tend to be from vegan sources. So if I was a vegan and I was trying to consume 270 grams from vegan sources of protein, my digestion would be absolutely wrote off because it just doesn't digest as well. Whereas if I was to solely consume whey protein for my 270 grams, yeah, I'd be skinned because I'd have to buy so much whey protein, but it would digest really quickly. Another reason why, compared to like chicken or beef or turkey or something like that, when you have a protein shake, it's not as satiating as like a meat source would be, because it's digesting a lot quicker. So it's in and out your digestive system a lot quicker than something that takes a little bit longer to digest. If you're going to supplement, especially for vegan, vegetarian, and even pescatarian diets, supplement with EAAs is a good option. Again, as we spoke about before, getting that full essential amino acid complex, it's hard to do without a varied source of protein sources. There isn't one meat that contains the full spectrum. So throughout the day, varying your protein sources is really important to make sure that throughout the day you're getting your full spectrum of EAAs, which can be...
Sorry, go on.
No, go on.
That's the same with branched chain amino acids as well. So I get a lot of questions about people asking me about BCAAs. Should they use BCAAs? What's the benefit of using them? So that's branched chain amino acids. You've got your essential and your non-essential. Branched chain are actually part of the non-essential amino acids, and you'll see them advertised a lot, BCAA products in like the nutrition stocks and stuff like that. And I always tell people that unless you've got a diet where you've got a deficiency, so say you are a vegan or you are a pescatarian and you're excluding you're excluding a certain thing from your diet, BCAAs, you will accrue enough BCAAs from a good solid diet so that you won't actually need to supplement with them ever. So unless you've got a deficiency, or in cases where someone, say, is dieting down for a bodybuilding show or something like that, and they're really at that peak of where they can take a calorie deficit, then I would suggest using BCAAs. But until that point, you will get enough BCAAs from your diet, as long as your diet is varied.
Yeah, exactly that. And then it's only really with vegan, vegetarian diets, like sort of restrictive protein source diets, where I would recommend the EAAs. It's just more for simplicity and for ease. Is anyone, I didn't even make it more interesting instead of me harping on about it all the time, is anyone vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian at all? No? All eat meat? All normal? Good. So protein specifics, the lower your calories are, the higher your protein intake needs to be. It's, again, if you're cutting calories low, you're going to feel hunger more. Adding in the extra protein is going to help with the satiation, helping you feeling full, but you're in an energy deficit, so you're not getting enough food, you're not getting enough carbs and fats in to fully like replenish your muscle energy stores. So to make up for that and to not have that slip into muscle damage, the extra protein is essential. So when dieting down, to keep as much muscle mass as possible, so that when you are leaner and you want to see that muscle, you don't want to have lost a load of it through your diet because your protein's not been high enough. As I was saying before, the protein differs between male and females. Protein turnover is higher in men. We have more androgenic hormones, testosterone being the main one. Our testosterone is far greater in males than it is in females, which means that we can just utilize and process a lot more protein than females can. Hence why the digestion issues sort of creep in with females when you push past that 1 gram per pound of protein. Body fat also plays a part in it. If you're 2% body fat and you weigh 120 kilos, you're going to look vastly different, and you're going to have a big difference in muscle mass compared to someone who's the same weight but 40% body fat. There's less muscle tissue in the person who's got higher percent body fat, so their muscles require less protein because there just isn't as much of them. So again, that's a consideration for when you're sort of programming how much protein you need. If you've got a lot of muscle mass and you are lean, then yeah, you want to be at the top end of that protein intake. If you haven't, and you maybe are at a higher end of the body fat spectrum, then you don't require as much protein. Your protein requirement still needs to be at that. I would never drop below 0.8, but you don't need to be pushing it higher until you've got that muscle mass there to need it. Just touching on carb intake to do with this, sort of the reverse of going into a diet. So if you're pushing in sort of like an off season, you're trying to get bigger, you're trying to get stronger, your carbs are going to go up. Carbs are protein sparing, so you aren't going to get that sort of muscle wastage, muscle atrophy. So your protein can come down. This also again links into your digestion. Once you start pushing food higher and you're going into a calorie surplus, as you start pushing food more and more and more, you're again taxing your digestive system. So trying to ram the top end of that protein intake in, as well as all the extra calories from the carbs and the fats that you're consuming, you're just putting more stress on your digestive system than you need to. So first goal for all the clients that we work with and anyone I ever speak to about nutrition is hit your protein target. Before you do anything else, regardless of what your goal is, your first nutrition goal should always be to hit your protein intake before you worry about anything else. Research shows spreading protein intake across the day is best. So we spoke about MPS before. MPS isn't a constant. It's like a switch. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off throughout the day. Obviously, it's triggered by you consuming protein. So if you were to have a massive portion of protein in the morning and then not have any until the evening, you've only had 2 opportunities for your body to be in a state of MPS. Whereas if you evenly split that protein throughout the day, you're going to constantly flick in and out of that MPS for the whole day. Again, going back to the satiation as well, if you are on a diet, it makes sense to spread out the protein throughout the day. It's the most satiating. It's going to make you feel the fullest, the longest. So rather than just having a big chunk of it in one meal, nothing, and then a big chunk of it later on in the day, spread it out and spread out that feeling of fullness as much as you can throughout the day, as much as is doable for you. It's regulated meal by meal, so obviously the more protein you consume within your protein requirement, the longer you can essentially stay in a state of MPS. There is an upper limit again to how long you can stay. You can support MPS, but splitting it throughout the day, again, is just prolonging that for as long as possible. 4 to 6 meals is optimal. Obviously not doable for everyone. 6 meals a day, if you've got a busy office job, you can't just keep nipping off to the kitchen and whipping out your food and sitting down a bit. Look, I can't.
Unless you owe me, when I worked in the law firm and everyone used to take the piss out of me for getting 4 or 5 different boxes out every single day. And they'd know straight away as well. They'd turn around and go, "It's after 3 times time for you to have a meal, mate."
Or 3 set meals.
Even put it
in. Yeah, so if you are having 1 to 3 meals a day, if you're having 1 meal a day, please come and speak to me because we need to have a word, because why are you only eating once? What are you eating? But yeah, 1 to 3 meals a day. Are you missing out on opportunities to increase MPS? Short answer, yeah, you are. It doesn't have to be a full meal. If you've got 3 main meals, which most people do, breakfast, lunch and tea, simply just sticking a protein shake in between meal 1 and 2 and meal 2 and 3 is giving you 5 opportunities for MPS over 3, which is obviously more beneficial. Splitting protein down between your meals, I'd say 25 to 30 grams minimum per meal is the bottom. I wouldn't try and go anywhere below that, regardless of what the meal is. If it's going to be just a protein shake, you're probably going to hit the 25 to 30 grams anyway with 1 scoop if you've got a decent protein. If you weight-wise, obviously it's going off your weight as well. If you're 120 to say 150 pounds, then yeah, the 25 to 30 grams over about 4 to 6 meals is going to have you hit your protein target for the day, and it's going to spread it out evenly. If you're heavier than that, so for me, 6 meals at 25 grams just wouldn't get me anywhere near where I need to be. Some of mine are closer to 60, but it's whey protein, so it's not going to mess with me digesting up, having a big whack of it, having 60 grams, which is quite a lot in one sitting, because I'm going to digest it quite well as long as I get the strong one that's got the lactase in and I can digest that. But that's a whole other issue. Then yeah, I can digest it fine.
It's important to remember as well that sometimes your protein target might seem quite high, but if you're tracking your food accurately, you'll actually find that there's protein in things that you didn't even know there was protein in the first place. So things like oats and pasta and rice and all that, you think, oh, they're my carb sources, but actually when you break it down and you put it into your tracker, you'll find you're actually getting 10 grams of protein from your oats in the morning, you're getting 7 grams of protein from your portion of pasta, and it all adds up across the day.
Yeah, exactly that. Just on that one though, obviously if you are all omnivorous dieters, meaning you eat both fruit, veg, and meat. Try and obviously when you're like building your nutrition plan, when you're planning out your meals, plan it around proper protein sources, your meats, fishes, eggs, whey protein. Get it as close as you can to your protein target, and then that like 10, 15, 20 grams you get from your other sources will just bulk that up a little bit. So especially so I'm currently prepping for a show that's probably not going to happen. I'm just continue to prep anyway and see what happens. My protein's completely from actual protein sources, and then anything that comes from like bagels or the oats or anything like that, we're just not counting. We're obviously counting the calories from the food, but we're just not counting it from a protein standpoint, so that we're definitely getting proper protein sources, basically. As we spoke about, aiming for a full spectrum of amino acids is always the goal. For vegans and vegetarians, this is a lot harder. So we're saying supplement with EAAs and pay attention to the foods you consume. It's a lot more important to sort of dig into what type of protein sources you're getting if you are a vegan, vegetarian, to make sure that you are getting that full spectrum of amino acids, figuring out what ones are missing from your diet and what you need to bolster up. We'll just go back to that one. Sorry, it's not on the slides. I thought it was. I forgot to put it in. If you are vegan, vegetarian, or if you're working with someone who is vegan, vegetarian, I would go aim for the lower end of the spectrum. So like the 0.8 grams, regardless of whether it's male or female. It's a more achievable start point. It's a more realistic start point. And then if, say, it is a male and you're progressing with them, or you're progressing yourself as a male, then start to look at ways of increasing that. But it's just not as achievable without animal sources. So next, fats. They get a bad rep, but they're essential. EFAs, essential fatty acids, they are essential to bodily functions. They get demonized because they are calorie dense. Out of all three macros, per gram, they have the most calories. So for protein, every gram is 4 calories. Nearly said that the wrong way around there. Every gram is 4 calories. For carbohydrates, every gram is 3.75 calories, but everyone just rounds up to 4 because you just don't really need to get that nerdy into it. 4 is easier.
You use 3.75.
Isaac uses 3.75. We use 3.75 for my prep, yeah. And then fats, for every gram of fat, there is 9 calories. So, yeah, if you are consuming a lot of fats, then you're going to hit your calorie target a lot quicker. So that's kind of why they get a bad rep. That's why the low-fat diets and stuff caught on and became such a big thing, and it got demonized. And then there's the whole, oh, well, you'll eat fat, you'll get fat. It doesn't really work like that. So that shouldn't say curtail. I don't even know what that word is. It should say crucial to absorb fat-soluble vitamins. So vitamins A, D, E, and K can only be absorbed through fat-soluble cells. So if you aren't consuming enough fat, you won't be able to absorb 4 vital vitamins into your body.
Yeah, they're all important for your immune function, all 4 of those.
They're also needed for cell health. They help produce new cells. They help cell, big word coming, autophagy, which is cells self-regenerating. And they're also key to hormone production in both the gut and the brain. So which ones should you be going for? Saturated fats, so animal fats, eggs, coconut oil, useful for cholesterol and hormone synthesis. So the hormone production we're talking about, saturated fats will be useful for that. Cholesterol. Not sure if you know, but you have LDL and HDL cholesterol. One's good, one's bad. The good one helps cancel out the bad one. So if you can eat more good cholesterol, you will help get rid of your low cholesterol. So saturated fat can help with that. Monounsaturated fats such as olive oil, avocados, nuts can have a positive effect on HDL and LDL, as we just spoke about. Polyunsaturated fats, fish oil, flaxseed, so like your omega-3s help decrease inflammation, heart disease risk, and they can also help with depression. Again, linking back to that hormone synthesis, they help regulate hormone release in the brain and in the gut so that you are getting the right amount of serotonin and dopamine releases throughout the day, along with a lot of other essential hormones. Try and avoid trans fats. So trans fats are man-made. Think like Burger King.
Yeah, all your
solid,
processed shit.
yeah, like the like McDonald's cheese that you couldn't buy anywhere and it doesn't go off for like 7 years. Yeah, you want to start asking why that piece of dairy hasn't gone off like 3 months.
I've worked in food establishments and they don't even call it cheese. It's just called a burger slice. They can't actually legally call it cheese because it's not cheese.
That's thrown up all kinds of red flags.
Yeah.
Tastes good though.
Yeah.
So how much fat should you be having? It depends on how the rest of your diet's set up, really. Low carb diets, around 55 to 70% of your daily calories. Moderate to high carb diets, you're looking 20 to 30%. For short diet pushes, especially for people trying to get really lean, if it's a photo shoot, if it's like holiday photos, if it's a show, then there are going to be phases where you may drop below 15%. But obviously other things are going to suffer for that, and it's not somewhere that I would suggest being for a long amount of time. I wouldn't really suggest dropping your fat any lower than 30 grams a day. 30 grams, like we were talking about the protein, having that minimum amount of protein requirement for like bodily functions. Fats are the same for most people. Around about 30 grams is like the minimum requirement you need for your bodily functions to be at normal, to be at base level. I'm just going to go and turn the light on because I'm starting to disappear into the dark here because it's that dark.
Not necessarily a bad thing, mate, to be honest.
I know, yeah. So move on to carbs. Technically not an essential nutrient. So you ready? I'm going to try and get my mouth around this one. Gluconeogenesis. Done it first time.
Yes.
Mate,
Call him Stephen Hawking, that man.
I'm not going to say it again because I'll get it wrong. So gluconeogenesis, I did it, is the process of fats being turned into carbohydrates and used for energy. So stored body fat can be pulled from cells. Through this process, it can be turned into energy to be used around the body. The brain actually prefers fat as a fuel source over carbohydrates. Obviously, your muscles need carbohydrates to function. So this is where gluconeogenesis would come in. However, there are clear benefits to having carbohydrates in your diet. You can train harder. You can train with more volume and more intensity. Your muscles solely run off carbohydrates. They are the fuel source. Without adequate amount of carbs, you will just feel like crap. You'll have no energy, you won't recover properly, and you'll just be knackered all day. It also has an impact on leptin. So leptin is a hormone that's released that makes you feel full, basically. The opposing hormone is called ghrelin. This is known as the hunger hormone. this is that signaling hormone when you start sitting in the, so you're like, oh, right, okay, I need to eat. Yeah. And it's not just that I'm sitting in the house bored type of eat. It's that like stomach rumbling. Yeah, I've missed a meal. I need to go and eat. So that's getting a massive release of ghrelin into the body. Consuming carbs helps release leptin into the body to signal that you are full or to signal that you've had food. Looking at more higher calorie diets, so looking to try and consume more calories if you're trying to grow, trying to get stronger, they'll allow you to hit your calorie target more easy because most things that taste nice are full of carbs. So it just makes your diet a lot easier. Increased metabolic capacity when not dieting. So they digest easily as well. So from consuming carbs to them being processed to being shuttled off to the muscles, depending on the carb source you choose, is a really quick process. So if you are training hard and you are wanting to recover quickly, then it's sort of essential that you need carbs in your diet. Otherwise, you're just not going to perform well. Touch a little bit on insulin. So its primary role, regulating blood sugar. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. It shuttles glucose into the liver, muscles, and fat cells. So as soon as you consume carbohydrates, you release insulin. Insulin goes out, pulls all the little glucose cells. Glucose is what all carbohydrates break down into. Well, sorry, most carbohydrates break down into. Won't get into the science behind different types of carbs too much for now. If anyone does want to know more, please pop up and I'll talk a little bit more about it. But the majority of the carbs you're going to consume are going to turn into glucose. Insulin goes out, pulls it into the muscles, lowers your blood sugar levels. It can decrease appetite when combined with protein. The more processes that are going on in your body, so if you only consume carbs or you only consume fats or you only consume protein, you're only having to produce one enzyme to break down that macro. If you're consuming carbs, fats, and proteins all at once, your body's having to produce the enzymes to break down all three. It's then having to do more work, so it's then signaling to the brain, it's got more work to do, don't give us any more food until we've dealt with this. So that's kind of how it works with decreasing your appetite. It can inhibit lipolysis, so fat breakdown. So everyone's like, well, I'm not going to lose fat. Energy balance is still key. So if you are still in a calorie deficit, if you're still eating less calories than you burn off every day, lipolysis will be slowed while the insulin is in your blood, while those carbohydrates need to be shuttled away. But as soon as they are, it will stop and you'll go back into using fat for energy because you're in an energy deficit. You're not consuming enough calories to not require more energy from the stored energy sources like fat. So the insulin temporarily stops fat burning. It doesn't mean that you're not going to lose fat because you've ate carbs. It just means while that insulin is being produced to deal with the carbs and to pull it into the muscles, you'll stop needing to require fat for energy. So how many carbs do you need? 2 seconds. So once protein is set, your carbs are controlled by your fat intake. If you've got a low fat intake, then your carbs are going to be higher. And if you've got a high fat intake, your carbs are going to be quite a considerable amount lower. To be truly low carb, so when I say low carb, I mean like keto, you're looking less than like 20 grams of carbs a day. And that's from everything, including like veg. I tried keto years ago before I sort of knew how much bullshit it was. And broccoli was my carbs for the day. So my last meal of the day was salmon and broccoli. And the broccoli was enough to hit me 20 grams of carbs for the day. That's the only way you're truly going to go low carb and go into a state of ketosis where you're solely using fat as your primary energy source. So people who say they're going low carb and they're still eating like cereal for breakfast and stuff, and that might be their only carb source, they're not, because there's quite a lot of carbs being consumed for you to not be in ketosis. Moderate carbs, you're looking around 25 to 50% of your calorie intake being from carbohydrates. So to low carb or not low carb, so we'll talk through the benefits of both and when it's probably most applicable for people. So low carb, if you or your client is busy, stressed, you're not really too fussed about nutrition. It's just a tool for you. It's just, you need to eat, but you're not really concerned about what the food is. Then low carb might be an option. It's a lot simpler. It's a lot easier. Meals are smaller, and you are just eating for a purpose. If you're on a short time scale for results, so if you've got a holiday in like 6 to 12 weeks, or you've got a photo shoot, or you've got a show coming up, then again, low carb is ideal for this. It gets results quickly. And then just personal preference. If you enjoy a lower carb diet, if you enjoy fattier food sources, if you enjoy nuts and oily fish and cheeses and stuff like that, then low carb, go low carb. Then not low carb, if you are, terrible spelling mistakes in this. If you are well trained or well educated in nutrition, so competitors, trainers, or you've just been training for a long time, you'll sort of understand and notice the value of carbs, and when they are in your diet and when they're not, you'll notice the difference in how you perform in the gym. And then longer time frames, if you've got something coming up 20 weeks plus, then utilize the carbs. It's a long time to be training. It's a long time to be dieting, like 20 weeks plus. Utilize carbs. Otherwise, you are just going to flake out really quickly. And then again, personal preference. If you enjoy carbs like me, then if you like cake, eat it. In a nutshell, low carbs work great with most people in short term, and they can get results quick. Longer term, adding in and using carbs will yield you greater results. There'll be less muscle wastage, you'll feel less fatigued, and it just won't be as hard, like psychologically, for you to deal with. So we'll touch on energy balance now. So main success with any diet for anyone is your energy balance and protein intake. Are you consuming the right amount of calories for your goal? And are you consuming enough protein for your goal? If you hit those two things, you will get the results that you're looking for. The carbs and the fats don't really matter a great deal, and that's why we say it's personal preference. If your calories are on track and if your protein's on track, the rest is relevant. You could essentially eat whatever you want then to fill those remaining calories. Obviously, certain foods and at certain times are going to be more optimal. You're going to get better results and better performance from picking certain meals. Like if you were to just have cake as your carb source, then you're going to have like 2 slices of cake and some chicken all day, and that's you. Obviously, so being smart in the choices that you make. Things to consider with your energy balance. I'll go through each one of them in case anyone doesn't know. So TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. So this is how many calories you burn in 24 hours through everything you do, exercise, not exercising, bodily functions, just all of it combined makes up your TDEE. Your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. This is how many calories your body needs to just function. So if you imagine you were in a coma, in hospital, laying in a hospital bed, not moving at all, to just stay exactly how you are, same weight, same muscle mass, everything, that's how many calories your body would require to just remain dormant and the same, not lose weight, not gain weight. Then NEAT, non-exercise energy thermogenesis. So this is everything you do outside of training, outside of your fitness stuff. Walking around, walking up and down the stairs, going to the toilet, just general life stuff is your NEAT. This makes up this, and then EAT, which is energy, exercise, thermogenesis. Those two actually make up quite a small portion of how many calories you burn every day. The biggest calorie expenditure comes from your BMR. Just literally how many calories your body requires to function every day is where the most of your calories get used. And then finally, TEF, we sort of touched on before, the thermobolic effect of food. Surprisingly, if you look at some studies, exercise, so EAT, exercise, energy, thermogenesis, and TEF are about the same. So if you imagine 70% of your calories are being used on your BMR, and you're getting 5% of your calories used through training, TEF takes up about 5% as well. So it's not saying stop going to the gym, give up, it's useless, but it just goes to show like your training isn't the be all and end all of fat loss. It's just one factor that gets added in. There's a lot of other things at work. And also, when we're calculating your calories, it's a guess. It's a stab in the dark. It's an educated guess. There are calculations. There's some calculations we're going to go through in a minute to help you calculate it, but it is a guess. What works for you, someone who's exactly your size, exactly your build, exactly your weight, them calories might be completely wrong. It is very person dependent. So diet set up for carbs, the most important one because everyone likes to eat loads of carbs. Start off calculating out your calories. So body weight in pounds times any number between 10 and 14. If you're looking for fat loss, I would say 12. It's kind of like a sweet spot for fat loss for most people. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, but most of the time when I'm setting someone's diet up, if I do their body weight in pounds, times it by 12, the calories that come out are bang on to start with. Doesn't leave them feeling starving, and it doesn't leave them losing weight really slowly. So there, you've got the equation there, 200 pounds times 12 gives you 2,400 calories. So there's your calories done. Next thing you want to work out is your protein intake. So for this is like a heavier, more muscular male. So we've gone from the top end, it's your body weight again in pounds times between 0.8 and 1.25. So 200 pounds times 1.25 gives us 250 grams of protein or 1,000 calories. Next, work out your fat. So we're looking for a high carb diet now. So we're looking for a smaller percentage of fat, so the 20-30%. So find your total calories, 2,400, and times it by between 0.2 and 0.3 to get you that 20-30% of your calorie intake. So for this, we've done 0.2, gives you 480 calories of fat. Divide that by the 9, and that'll give you the grams of fat. So there you've got 53 grams of fat. And then finally, to work out your carbs, it's just the remaining calories you've got left. So you're getting your total calories, you're taking away your calories from protein, which is 1,000, and you're taking away your calories from fat, which is 480, leaving you with 920 calories for carbs. Divide that by 4 or 3.75 if you're a bad nerd, and it will give you how many carbs you've got left, how many carbs you need to consume to hit your calorie goal. So that's diet set up for carbs. Any questions? No? So I'll jump into low carb. So we're just flipping on its head. Calories, exactly the same equation. Protein, exactly the same equation. Except this time with the fats, you're timesing it by 0.5. So 50% of your calories are going to come from fats. So go through the equations, times it by 0.5, 1,200 calories. Divide the 1,200 by 9, you're getting 135 grams of fat. So for somebody who weighs 200 pounds, which is not short of where I'm at now, it's quite a lot of fat. Like that would be a real struggle for me to try and consume 135 grams of fat without just sticking a bottle of whipped cream in my mouth and going to town. And then again, just working out your total calories. So taking away your calories from protein, taking away your calories from fat, leaves you with 200 calories. So you're getting 50 grams of carbs. If you're on your calories already and you know how much carbs 50 grams of carbs is, it's like a slice of bread. So yeah, it's not for everyone. Me personally, I can't really go low carb, not that low anyway. It just isn't sustainable long term for me and for my training, which is the case for a lot of people. So different diet tracking methods, and which one's the best for you, what should you go with? So touch on all of these: portion control, set meal plans, flexible dieting on protein and calories, and flexible dieting if it fits your macros. Hybrid diet, and then we'll touch on intuitive eating as well. So portion control, this is from Precision Nutrition. I've used this on a couple of clients. It's really handy to do. It's just going off the size of your hand. So it is very individual to the person using it. If you look at so on the left there, you can see my mouse. This is your carb portion, closed fist. This is your fat portion, just the length of your thumb. Protein is the palm of your hand for females. For males, it's double all of these. So this is the measurements for a female. And then for like fruits and veggies, it's like a cupped hand. So for a female, going off the hand sizes, it's just one, and then for males, you just double that. When to use this: if you are a complete beginner to dieting, and you just aren't sure of what foods to choose, aren't sure of what foods are the best, aren't sure of portion sizes, and can't be bothered weighing your food out, then this is a great way of ballparking. It's really simple to follow. However, it's just not very accurate. So when you start getting into the nuts and bolts of things, it's not enough. It's not going to get you the best results. So next up, set meal plans. Great for time sensitive goals. So you're talking your 6 to 12 week goals. Getting sent out a set meal plan. Eat this at this time. Repeat for 12 weeks. Will get you the desired results. You will hit your macros every day, and you'll be on track. It's what I'm using during prep. It just takes the thinking out of it for me. So I just know. I just look at the meal plan. Right, it's that time of day. That's what meal I'm eating. Again, great for beginners. If you are unsure of foods, you can't think off the top of your head what food to have at this time of day. It's there written down for you. You just need to go out and buy the stuff. Like I've just said there, for intermediate and advanced, that just want to take the thinking out of it. So for me, obviously running, the coaching stuff, doing my own training, coaching everyone day to day, it's just one less thing for me to have to think about and to deal with through the day. I can just look, it's written down, I know what I'm eating, I eat it. If you've got sort of a bad history with food, maybe not the healthiest relationship with food, it can trigger those bad habits, and it can sort of push you into a bad relationship with food. The previous gym I work for, I know Claire, you'll know it, it's where we know each other from, we're massive on nutrition plans and not stepping away from nutrition plans, regardless of the person's history to do with food and their relationship with food, which
it got me in some really bad habits that I'm still trying to break, to be honest. Like, that's one of the reasons why I joined today, because I'm still, like, it got me to the point where I couldn't eat out because I was having, like, anxiety over choosing meals that weren't on my meal plan. And, like, I'm someone who really likes food, and I got to the point where I didn't like food anymore, because it was causing me so much stress. And so now I'm still trying to break some of those habits from sticking to such a rigid meal plan all the time.
Yeah, I was exactly the same as you. Obviously, when I was overweight, I'd eat loads and loads and loads and loads. But that was partially due to self-control, lack of self-control, and partially due to being a foodie and enjoying food. And when I tried to do meal plans, I found that it worked to get me results, but like the longer I did it, eventually got to a point where I was like, right, okay, I'll just go and binge. And then I'd go and binge eat, and then I'd be like, I'm just going to eat all this now because I'm sick of doing this plan. And then it'd come back to the Monday and I'd go, right, I'll get back on the plan now, do the plan, just get myself into the same like rut where I'd do the plan, and I'd be like, I'm sick of this now, I'm just going to go and eat loads, and then I'd binge again. And I think sometimes if you do have those underlying sort of like that underlying affiliation with food that you may have had in the past and not necessarily the best things to use, they will get you results, but it can, as you say, you've had experience with yourself, create sort of a bad relationship with it.
Yeah, definitely. They work and they are good. However, they're not. I would not push them on anyone long term. They're a great starting point for most people, but as it says there at the bottom, it just doesn't teach you about food. It doesn't teach you how to live outside of a nutrition plan. So if you are spending months and months and months on a nutrition plan, being told what to eat and when to eat, once that nutrition plan's gone, shit hits the fan. You don't know where you're at. You don't know what you should be choosing or where you should be eating. So yeah, they're great, but need to go hand in hand with education of food choices and making the right choices outside of a meal plan. So flexible dieting, is that the right one? Yeah, flexible dieting can give you an education into dieting. So this is kind of sort of the next step. Yeah, they're the wrong way around. It should be the other one. We'll go into this one first. So flexible dieting, like full flexible dieting, if it fits your macros, basically just being given a protein goal. Sorry, just being given a calorie goal and just have at it. Just as long as you're under your calories, eat what you want. As it says there, it works best with education to just say to someone who's been on a meal plan, right, you've been on this set meal plan for 12 weeks now, go off, eat what you want, and you've got 1,200 calories, 1,500 calories, whatever it is. If you've not ate cake in 12 weeks, you're spending 1,500 calories on cake and then you're done for the day. So it needs to be that education to support that and that knowledge behind the calories and the food choices. It allows flexibility and variety over a set meal plan. So if you are eating out, it gives you that option to be able to pick foods that you do like and to pick meals that you do like and still stay on track with your goals and still enjoy your life and live a normal life. You need to track everything. No, this is the downside to it. If you're looking for that body transformation, if you're looking for that drastic change, you need to account for everything. I'm weighing out my protein powder, so I'm not going off the scoops at the moment. I'm literally putting the protein powder into the protein shake on the scales to know that I'm getting exactly 60 grams of protein powder. So it does become quite monotonous if this isn't your number one top priority and you haven't got the time to be weighing out that accurately, then it can be an issue. Things start creeping in where you maybe, especially if you've been dieting for a long time, like you're putting peanut butter on your toast and there's like 10 grams of peanut butter left on that spoon. It's not going in the sink, is it? It's going in your mouth. Like you're licking that spoon clean, but it's not going in MyFitnessPal. The calories still went in, but if they're not in MyFitnessPal, then it didn't happen. So that's where like the holes start coming in to full flexible dieting.
You do have to track more stringently. This is personally the strategy that I adopt. Now, I know that I have to track more stringently if I'm going to do this, but because of my relationship with food and the fact that I enjoy food, I find using the flexible dieting approach, if I've got me macro targets and I've got me calorie target, yeah, I know, okay, I'm going to have to track these more stringently, but at least then I know that I can enjoy the foods that I like. And I know that it's fitting into my plan. I know it's fitting, it's contributing towards my goals. So even though I might have to take a little bit extra time to track certain things, it actually gives you more freedom overall in terms of what you're able to eat, which is obviously beneficial if you are a foodie and you do like your food. Then that little bit of extra effort to track things, I personally feel in the long run is more beneficial with you being able to eat more of the stuff that you enjoy.
Yeah, I think long term, this is probably one of the one of the better approaches to take. Again, it can lead to an unhealthy mindset, but then there's also the argument against it. If people say that tracking your food every day is obsessive, but if there's a purpose to it, you're not obsessive. If you are saving for a house, you track all the money that goes in and out of your account. Are you obsessive about money because you're trying to save for a house? No. There's a purpose behind you trying to save that money. Same way with this. If your purpose is to lose weight or gain weight or to look a certain way or to achieve a certain thing, and the food you consume is important to that, then no, being obsessive with this isn't really a thing. It's just what needs to be done for you to be able to flexible diet and track your calories. So flexible dieting, not as full on. This one I think works quite well for a lot of people. It's a lot simpler, literally just having a protein goal and a calorie goal. Like we were talking about before, they're the two most important to hit. So as long as you hit the both of those, it doesn't really matter what the rest of the food is that you eat. If you're eating a meal out, if you're going out for lunch and stuff like that, as long as you hit your protein goal for the day, you're free to eat whatever you want. If you go out for a coffee and you want to have a cookie that's in Costa or whatever it is, you can have it, and you can just make adjustments later on in the day to account for that, and you get a lot more freedom. You're still hitting the two important goals. You're still hitting your calorie goal, whether that's putting you in a deficit or whether that's keeping you in just enough of a surplus to grow, and you're hitting the protein, so you're getting enough protein in your diet to be able to grow and repair your muscles. Probably one that I use the most when I move clients away from a nutrition.
I employ this the most with my clients, definitely. It gives them less things to worry about, especially if they don't have nutritional knowledge in the first place. If you just go, right, there's your calorie target, there's your protein target, ignore everything else, then it's a lot easier for people to take that on board and start working towards that, rather than giving them, like, I want you to eat exactly 41 grams of fat today. It's like, it's very easy for people to manage, and it gets them used to eating within the confines and restrictions, but also they've got a lot of freedom as to what they can eat.
Yeah, definitely. Just completely unrelated to everything we're talking about, if you could do me a massive favour, just take a photo of one of the slides and just stick it on your story for us and tag us in it. It just helps to try and get more people in on this. So if you could do that, that'd be amazing. Thanks, and then I'll get back to talking about this now. So hybrid dieting, again, something that we utilise quite a lot. Kind of something I'm trialing with Tara at the moment, who's on the call. Sort of the best of both worlds. You've got a calorie goal. It's probably something would have looked if you were my client Claire to move you away from the nutrition plan. Is this would sort of be the next step. Is going into that hybrid to sort of account for your meals out on the weekend and stuff like that. But also not putting too much thinking on your part during the week. This is what I employ for me, like 90% of the year, because I need things to be simple. I've not got the most complex thinking brain. I need things to be in order. I need a plan. I need it to all be laid out. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. For me, what I will do is Monday to Friday, I will have a set meal plan. I'm a bit of a robot when it comes to food, so I can just monotonously eat the same foods on repeat without really getting bored of them. And once I get bored of them, I'll just swap it out for something else. I'll do that Monday to Friday. This is more when I'm not like in a dieting phase, when I'm like sort of off season trying to grow. And then Saturday, Sunday, we'll just have a calorie goal and a protein goal to hit, where I can go out for a meal if I want to. I can have a drink. I can go and socialise and do whatever. And then I can incorporate that during the week as well. If something pops up on Wednesday, I know my calories for that day. I've got the meal plan for Wednesday, but I also know my calories, my macros for that day. So if I end up going off plan, I just track it. And then I know as long as I stay within those calories, I'm fine and I can crack on and I can still go out and socialise, have a meal out, go to Frankie and Benny's, go to wherever it is, have a really big dirty burger in town, and it's fine. I'll just account for it somewhere else through the week. Another way of doing it is set calorie goals for each meal. So if you have, say, you're on 2,000 calories and you split that up 500, 500, 500, 500 across 4 meals, if you have 3 of those meals planned, say breakfast, dinner, and a snack, big snack, and then someone says to you, do you want to go out for tea tonight? You know, yeah, right. Well, if I'm going out tonight, as long as I stick to 500 calories, I'm still on track for the week. It gradually moves you away from that meal plan. You can just start taking meals out more and more, start planning meals yourself, and start thinking more around the calories and being more conscious ahead of time planning meals. So that there personally is my favourite for the majority of the year. It just has the best of both, and that mix to be able to switch from one to the other. Intuitive eating. So you've all heard of intuitive eating. It's good in theory. I don't know if any of you follow Emily Thompson, PhD on Instagram. She's massive into this, and I get it. She does a lot of stuff to do with psychology and eating disorders and the psychology around food and diet culture. So I agree with the idea of it. I think it's great. I don't think anyone should have fear around food and should be able to just eat what they want when they want. Is it applicable to 90% of 99% of the population? Probably not. For you to be able to just intuitively choose the food you want to eat and still stay within your goals is a really difficult thing to do. I know I couldn't do it. I've struggled with binge eating before. I think most people, to some extent, will have a bit of a shaky relationship with food. Will have been in a binge starve cycle of eating. They will have maybe been overweight and lost a lot of weight, maybe overweight now, struggling to lose weight. To have that awareness of that internal awareness of, yeah, I'm actually full, I don't need any more food, is a really difficult thing to do. And hats off to that Emily Thompson for being able to do it. She's obviously very in tune with her body and her own mental health to be able to control that. I just don't think it's doable.
I will only ever stop eating if I'm physically going to be sick. Like,
yeah.
And I think most people aren't just going to go, do you know what, actually, I won't have that last slice of pizza because I'm full.
And it's sort of ingrained into us. At the end of the day. It's sort of ingrained into us as well from childhood. Like when you were a kid and you would be like, you can't go anywhere until you've finished all the food on the plate. Without realising it, that is forcing you into overeating, an overeating habit. We've got a culture of overeating just because of table manners. And that's deeply ingrained into you. You look at a plate of food.
Got me ma to blame for making me fat.
Blame your mum, basically.
Am I?
Blame your ma. Yeah. Yeah. So it can work, but for most people it won't. And it's a bit of a fucking buzzword from all the knobheads on Instagram as well, who just aren't intuitively eating. The people who talk about it all day, but then don't put on the story the 9 bags of Skittles and the 2 share bars of chocolate yet. So yeah, it's a bit of a buzzword, and it's nice in theory, but it's a bit shit, if I'm completely honest. So fasting, intermittent fasting, it works for some. It is terrible for others. Again, it sort of links back to your relationship with food and your history, your diet history, whether or not this is going to work for you. If you've had food weight issues in the past or currently, and you may be someone who is prone to binge eating or has been prone to binge eating in the past, then fasting just isn't going to work for you. If you're purposely starving yourself for a large majority of the day, and then you come to that feeding window of however many hours it is you've chosen, you're just gonna stuff your face, and you're gonna hit. So you might, whatever the calories is you've set yourself for that window, if you are someone who has binge ate in the past, or you are someone who is currently overweight, your hormone release for feeling full, your leptin release that we spoke about before, just isn't going to be the same. It's not going to be as sensitive. So your ability to overeat is going to be far greater. So you will end up going right over those calories. So it's not always effective. If you're very busy, if you've got a busy lifestyle and you don't get time to eat, then yeah, fasting can work. You can work it into people who've got like busy office jobs, or doctors and nurses and stuff like that who just are on their feet all day long. Fasting can work if they're in a fat loss phase, because they're not thinking about food, because they've got other things going on. And then when it comes to those slower periods in the day, then you can consume food in that window and it works. True fasting as well. Are you truly fasting if you do a 12-hour fast, 8-hour fast? The way I explain to most people is I'll ask you, what time do you normally go to bed? Or, sorry, what time do you have your last meal? Like 8, 9 o'clock at night. Okay. What time do you get up for work in the morning? Maybe 6, 7 o'clock. Okay. What time do you have breakfast? 8 o'clock. Right. Well, you're already fasting. You're already doing a 12-hour fast. You're just flipping on its head. Because you're not eating from 8 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock in the morning. That's why they call it breakfast. You're breaking a fast. So it's again another one.
Everyone's mind's just been blown, hasn't it? You ate breakfast and went, oh my days, that's what
it's again is another one of those buzzwords that sort of crept into the fitness industry of like, oh well, I'm going to do intermittent fasting. And say, well, you were already doing intermittent fasting. You've just moved the window to a different part of the day. However, longer, actual, truer fasts, it takes about 24 hours minimum for you to be in a truly fasted state, where there is no food left in your gut to be digested. Once you do reach a truly fasted state, there are some benefits towards gut and cell health. So the big word I mentioned before, autophagy. This is cells auto-regulating themselves, basically. So any cells that are damaged or dying off, your body will get rid of. It will either repair them if it can, or it will just kill them off and generate new cells. This has been shown in quite a few studies to happen at an increased rate during a true fast. I'm not sure if any of you follow the Muscle Mentors on Instagram. They've got a really good podcast. They dig into fasting a lot more than I could. I'd recommend going and listening to that, where they talk about longer fasts and like true fasts. And I think it's Callum from the Muscle Mentors, Callum or Luke, who will occasionally do like 36, 48-hour fasts. He does them quite regularly. He'll do like 1 or 2 a month, just for the autophagic effect. Got it out. So yeah, if you are interested in like the health benefits of fasting, I'd definitely go and recommend going and listening to those podcasts, especially now with some spare time on your hands. That's the Muscle Mentors podcast. So intermittent calorie restriction, this can work for some people. I have applied it to a few clients. It, again, is very person dependent. So the way it works is you're not actually fasting, you're just restricting calories. So down the bottom, you'll see I've put fast. It's a calorie restriction rather than a fast. So it's 1 to 4 days of the week where you're consuming about 25% of your total calories, and then paired with 1 to 3 days at maintenance. Studies have shown, again, not as much metabolic adaptation. So if any of you don't know what metabolic adaptation is, as you lose weight, as you consume less and less calories and you've got less and less energy, your body will start burning less calories every day. You will require less calories to do your normal bodily functions. So therefore, you'll just burn less calories. Coming in with this is also because you're eating less, your body will make you move less, you'll blink less, you'll twitch less. My foot goes like crazy all the time. Drives people insane. The more and more, the deeper I get into a diet, the less and less that will happen, because it's just my body subconsciously trying to conserve energy. So where was I going with that? I got completely off track there, didn't I? Yeah, that's metabolic adaptation, sorry. So it can work well for beginners. Again, it can also work well for, like we spoke about, busy lifestyles, busy jobs. If you're on your feet all day, or you have certain days of the week where you're just rushed off. So I've got clients who are, or were, should I say, hairdressers, would do hair and makeup. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, absolutely rammed, on their feet all day, don't get a minute. Perfect for 3 days of fasting. Or lower calories, sorry. So bang them on 25% of their total calories for the days where they're absolutely chocker. And then when it comes to Sunday, your takeaway feeling sorry for yourself day, where Domino's is calling you and leaving you messages, you've got your maintenance calories there on the Sunday to sort of deal with that. Saturday and Sunday are good days, obviously, for your maintenance calories, because people tend to be less active, tend to be doing less. Right now, in the current situation, this could be a good option for people trying to lose weight. People are moving around a lot less and a lot less active just because of the situation we're in. So going into a fast for 4 days and having maintenance in the middle could work quite well for fat loss and be okay to do. However, you have got the task of boredom eating to overcome. If you're in the house trying to do a fast and you've got a full shopping, it then becomes a mental challenge to not go and consume the food that you want to, and remember that you are fasting for that day, fasting for the next day, and then Wednesday, well, I can eat the food then because my calories are on maintenance. It can hinder performance. Obviously, 2 days on 25% of your total calories. If you're on 2,000 calories, so I'm going to do the maths, that's 400 calories, isn't it? 20% is 400 calories. So you're looking not a lot, you're looking less than 500 calories for 2 days in a row. And that's for someone who's consuming 2,000 calories at maintenance. So it's a challenge, it's tough, but it does get results. It's not something I would push on someone long term because they'll probably want to kill me and go insane. But yeah, it does work. It does work in the short term. So refeeds versus cheat meals. I personally hate the word cheat meals, but I've put it in there because I think most people sort of understand what I mean by cheat meal. I'll sort of explain why I hate the word cheat meal as well. So cheat meals, higher calorie meal, whatever you want to call it, an off-plan meal, an off-plan day, is probably more beneficial for beginners psychologically, just to sort of break the diet mentality, the diet monotony during the week, to sort of give you, if you are on a meal plan, to sort of Friday afternoon. I know the gym I used to work out was big on that. I'm sure you probably had that in your meal plans, Claire. Like Friday or Saturday was like cheat meal, because everyone got sent out the same template. It was really bad. So yeah, psychologically can be beneficial. Not always necessary. If someone's ticking the boxes with their diet plan, then it's not really necessary to break that calorie deficit with a cheat meal. And I also hate the word cheat meal. If you're putting someone on a meal plan and they're doing really well at it, and then they're cheating and they feel it's just, again, sort of on that whole relationship with food side of things, it's making you feel bad about certain foods. It's adding negative connotations to certain foods, which we don't want. Like, yeah, you're trying to lose weight, but you don't want to like end up with mental health issues around food just because you want to lose a bit of weight. It's just ridiculous. So I personally will never call it a cheat meal to anyone I'm working with. And if you are currently calling foods cheat meals, I would try and avoid that terminology just for yourself, just to stop sort of reinforcing the negative connotations of food, because it's just food at the end of the day. It genuinely doesn't really matter that much. So yeah, whatever you want to call it, off-plan meal, whatever it is, it can be psychologically beneficial to make you feel a bit more normal and a bit more not like you're hungry all the time. Now, refeeds, slightly different, more of a physiological, so like an actual internal response from refeeds. A refeed was essentially be a couple of days where you go up to maintenance calories to reverse the metabolic adaptations of being in a diet phase for a long period of time. So as we're saying, you start to move less, you start to blink less, you start to twitch less. You maybe want to do less steps every day because you just can't be bothered because you're tired, psychologically just beat up from a diet. Where if you've been in a diet for a long time, first couple of weeks, you're like, don't want no chocolate. Don't feel like having that chocolate. Or like the cake's there and you can have just a piece of cake and you don't end up having the whole cake. If you're 12, 18 weeks down the line, someone puts cake in front of you mentally, you just haven't got the resilience to say no to that. No one has. Like, it's hard. So the refeed sort of gives that refresh of the brain, refresh of your metabolic adaptations. Again, reference someone else who can dig into this a lot more than I can. If you follow BioLane on Instagram, about 2 or 3 IGTVs ago, he spoke about a really interesting study that was done in America about the use of refeeds stopping metabolic adaptation. So there was 2 groups. I may get the details a little bit wrong. This is going completely off memory. 2 groups in a dieting phase for 8 weeks. The first group, so the control group, just continuously dieted in a deficit for, say they were in a deficit of 500 calories every day, continuously for the 8 weeks. The second group, for 2 days a week, they would go up to maintenance calories. And then for the other 5, they would go into a slightly bigger deficit. So I think it was maybe like 600 to 800 calories deficit. At the end, the results showed that the group that were intermittently going into a diet break of maintenance calories had less muscle wastage, but lost the same amount of fat as the control group who continuously dieted. So they both lost the same amount of weight from start to finish. However, the group that put in the refeeds every week for 2 days in a row retain more muscle. So it does sort of point towards that if you're gonna, 1, refeeds work, and 2, if you're gonna put a refeed in, put it in for more than a day. So if you're gonna do it, do Saturday and Sunday. It's something I'm after listening to that, after reading about that study, it's something me and my coach will be putting into this prep when we do put refeeds in.
I've used them before myself, refeed days. I don't know, there's a top bodybuilding coach called Hani Rambod who employs these with a lot of his clients too. There's one of his top clients, Jeremy Buendia, is like 4 or 5 time Mr. Olympia in his class, and they employed these throughout his prep for his shows. It's quite widely used and they are effective.
Yeah, so definitely, just with that recent research, try and put 2 days in a row. It just seems to be a little bit more beneficial for resetting your metabolic, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, and all the other things that come with metabolic adaptation. So I forgot there was more slides. So yeah, I've gone through this. Underused. Oh no, sorry, this is completely different. Yeah, so diet breaks, again, kind of like the refeeds. It can be used when someone has been dieting for a long period of time, when you're sort of mentally checked out from a diet. You get to that point where you're just like, do you know what? I just don't care anymore. I just give me a Mackey's. I'm getting a pick and mix on the way home, and I'm eating all the Ben and Jerry's. That point there, trying to nip it in the bud before you get to that like self-imploding point. Try and identify that. We always try and identify it with clients and put a diet break in where we just say, right, this week, eat at maintenance. Forget about the deficit. Just eat at maintenance every day this week. It's a bit of a mindfuck if you've been dieting for like 12 weeks and you're like, what do you mean? A whole week of eating like 600 more calories every day? Like it can be, but then it can also be a bit of a, well, okay, well I am, but I'm going to prove you wrong. You're doing this to me so that I mess it up and I eat loads. Well, I'm not going to, and you end up just hitting maintenance. So it can work with that. Resets your appetite, sort of settles you back down into like a normal routine of not feeling hungry during the day. Again, I'll put down that BioLane study where it put the 2 refeed days. Definitely go and check that out. It was really interesting, and he's good at breaking down the information in the studies into like digestible information for people like me who struggle to sit there and read through the full study paper. Obviously, again, can improve your training intensity. If your training starting to taper off, if you're starting to hit plateaus in your training, then putting a diet break in can just sort of reset your mindset towards training. You feel a little bit better. You've got a little bit more energy. There's a little bit more food in you. So when it comes to doing that session, them sessions on your diet break week, you smash them. So then when the food goes back down again at the end of the week, you still feel good because you've had a good week of training. So then that carries on then forward into your next week's training. So we'll move on to the myths now. Only a couple of slides left now. So myth number 1, no carbs after 6 p.m. I'm sure you have all heard this one, that if you eat carbs late at night, then you'll just get fat. It's a load of shit, basically. Long and short of it, it's a load of rubbish. Your metabolism actually increases at night. When you go into a sort of resting phase, your parasympathetic phase, so your rest and digest system kicks in, your metabolism increases because it's doing all of the repair functions that it needs to, that it hasn't been able to during the day when you've been up and active. If you train at night, if you're someone who trains late in the evening after work nights, you end up training really early in the morning. I know Tom gets in the gym at like 4 o'clock sometimes, the weirdo. You need food. You're not going to just not eat because it's gone past 6 o'clock, but you've just done a really intense leg session and you're now not going to eat till 8 o'clock in the morning because it's past 6 o'clock. It's just absurd. It doesn't make any sense at all. And then again, social settings. You go out in the evening, don't you? You go out for meals. It's normally after 6 o'clock that you go out for your tea, where you're just not going to eat because it's gone 6 o'clock. Oh, I'll just have a salad and a steak, please. No, it just doesn't apply. So if you've heard that one, if you've ever thought it was true, you can just completely ignore it. Carbs at night can improve your sleep. For some people it can, for some people it can't. Again, person dependent. When you eat, you trigger the rest and digest system to come in and digest your food. If you've ever ate, like you were saying there before, Tom, if you eat a load of food, you eat till you feel stuffed, first thing your brain tells you to do is have a nap. It's that kind of mentality of, oh my God, I'm so full, I need to have a nap. That's that system kicking in where it's your body telling you, look, we've got food to digest here, let's just chill out for a minute, let us digest it. It also triggers serotonin release, which is a precursor to sleep. So number 2, excess carbs are stored as fat. Again,
see a big word you're not going to be able to pronounce there, mate.
Oh, you've seen it. You've clocked it, right? I got you down that one. Don't worry about it. So conversion of fat to carbs, de novo lipogenesis. What? Wow. Good job of recording this. There's no one to believe me. Is very inefficient. So de novo lipogenesis is the process of carbs being converted into fat to be stored as fat. The majority of the calories needed for that process to happen. So let's say, for example, for every gram of carbs that's getting stored as fat would require So 1 gram of carb is 4 calories. Yeah. For every gram of carb being stored, it would require like 3.5 calories for that process to happen. So it requires energy for it to happen, and it's not very efficient. It doesn't happen very quickly. It takes a long time for those carbs to be converted. What does happen when you are on higher carb diets, and this is kind of where the myths come from, is that if you are eating a high carb diet and you go over your calories, any fat that you consume that day will be straight away stored as fat. You will always utilize the carbs first. They will go to your muscles. Then any dietary fat that you consume that day will be stored as fat straight away. So that's where the excess carbs stored as fat. It just causes fat to be stored immediately and not used for anything else, not utilized for anything else. So less fat's oxidized because it doesn't need to be used for energy. It doesn't need to be drawn out of the fat cells to be used. Additional calories will always be stored as fat. If you go over your calorie intake for the day, if you go into a calorie surplus, you will store fat. That's your body's natural reaction. You've got excess energy. It won't waste it. Your body's sole job is to survive. It will store that energy to be used at a later date. Myth 3, eggs raise cholesterol. Everyone heard that one before? Yeah. Firstly, cholesterol's vital. We touched on this before. Both HDL and LDL cholesterol are needed in your body. Obviously, it's beneficial to have a good ratio of HDL to LDL cholesterol, but they are both vital. Your liver produces more cholesterol in a day than consuming 7 eggs. So unless you're Eddie Hall, you're probably not consuming more than 7 eggs a day. So I wouldn't worry at all about the cholesterol you consume. Also, your liver is smart. Your body is a lot smarter than we are. If you try and fuck with your body, if you try and increase your cholesterol consumption, your liver will just produce less to counter it. Same touching on like the alkaline drinks, the alkaline waters, and the like balancing out your pH levels and stuff like that. All you're doing is making your body work. If you drink a load of alkaline, your body will just produce a load of acidic enzymes to cancel it out until you reach that homeostasis again. So it's very smart. If your cholesterol goes up through dietary intake, your liver will just produce less. So myth busted. 4, metabolic damage. We still touched on this before, mostly associated with females on low calories and like high cardio setups, where you sort of see like really lean women who just haven't enough food for a long time. This is where metabolic damage may happen. What actually happens, it's not metabolic damage. So they're not actually, what people will see is like a girl has been on, say, 800 calories for 6 weeks and she's doing loads and loads of cardio, but is either staying the same weight or is gaining weight. And you're like, what's gone on? Have we damaged their metabolism? What's actually happening? Your energy in versus energy out has changed. Your metabolic rate has slowed. If you are on low calories and if you've had to get as low as 800 calories to try and lose weight, chances are you are very, very lean or very, very small. Once you are down at that size, your metabolism is like on the floor. The bigger you are, the more of you there is, the faster your metabolism is, because there is more of you that needs energy. Fat is an oxidative cell, so it requires oxygen, it requires energy. So the higher your body fat is, the bigger you are, the taller you are, the more energy you require. If you're like a 5'3", 40 kilo female, there is very little in your body that requires energy. So yeah, your metabolic rate's going to slow right down once you're down at like 800 calories. Your TEF reduces, so your thermobolic effective food. If you're only eating 800 calories, there's no food to digest. So you're not burning calories digesting food. your NEAT reduces. I tell you for a fact now, if you're eating 800 calories, walking to the toilet and back from your flat is going to be one of the biggest chores of your day. You're just not going to remove. Your body will subconsciously just try and stop you from moving as much as possible. It will actually make you go to the toilet less. It will give you the urge to go to the toilet less, just as a way of saving energy, because it's gone into that, like it's designed to survive, especially as females. So it will just find any way to conserve energy. It can also trigger binge eating. So when you are really low calorie, you don't produce as much leptin, or your leptin, the receptors in your brain that pick up leptin aren't as alert, so you don't feel full as quick, which means it becomes very easy to binge eat. You see this a lot in people who've been dieting for a long time. If they've come from bodybuilding shows and they've been on really strict calories, the next couple of days after the show, where there's no need to be as restrictive anymore, they can seriously binge. We've seen it. We've done in the last gym I work for, we've done a photo shoot. One of the girls, she won't mind me telling you this, was insanely lean for the show, done really well, but was really small. She was like 5'2", extremely lean, like ribs showing, all muscle fibers showing in her shoulders and her legs and stuff. But it was on 800 calories leading up to like the 2-3 days before the show, before the photo shoot, sorry. Got to the photo shoot, there was Krispy Kremes there was Haribo and stuff. And we went out for a meal afterwards as well. She'd ate like 3 Krispy Kremes in the photo shoot once she'd had her photos done. She's gone over her 800 calories already. She's been on 800 calories for like 3 weeks, maybe about a week. It was 800 calories. She's ate 800 calories in Krispy Kreme donuts already, then went out and ordered a meal. We went to like a Shake Shack place in Manchester, and they had like big burgers and loaded fries and stuff like that. Imagine this girl's like 5'2", 5'3", is about 40 odd kilos at this point, has just ate about 1,600 calories in donuts, is now ordering loaded fries, a milkshake, like an Oreo milkshake, and like a nacho platter, and is consuming it. She got to a point where she like threw up. She had to run off to the toilet, felt sick. She'd had so much food. Obviously, there was just no room in her stomach for any more food to go in. So it was like, right, we need to throw up. Goes and throws up, comes back after just having thrown up and starts trying to eat again. Eats about 3 more mouthfuls, runs off and throws up again. Comes back, threw up twice now, picks up a milkshake and tries to eat. We literally had to move the food away from her.
Oh, she's a legend, this girl.
Literally, oh yeah. Like, we were like, D,
not stopping her, getting asking on it.
D, you've threw up 3 times. Like, you've hit your limit. Like, your body can't tell you anymore that there is no room left in you for food. You've probably ate about your body weight in food today. It's time to stop. But that just shows how dampened down your leptin production and leptin receptors are when you've been in a dieting phase for so long. She would have happily just kept on eating and throwing up and kept on eating and throwing up to try and satisfy that leptin craving. You get stress from seeing no results. If you are dieting for a long time and you're not seeing a budge on the scale, it's stressful. Your cortisol levels rise. Your hunger levels get higher as soon as you diet. As soon as you start exercising and dieting, it actually increases ghrelin production, which is the hunger hormone. So the more you exercise and the more you diet, the more hungry you feel, which is counterproductive to the goal you're trying to achieve. But it's just one of those things that you have to try and deal with. And then you forget small things. If you've been dieting for a long time, there could be like a biscuit you just walk past, you were busy, you were running out the house, and you just had a little nibble or something. This all starts adding into the reason why you're not actually losing weight. And it's nothing to do with having metabolic damage. All these factors are all compounding together and pushing you out of that calorie deficit. And you're not actually in a calorie deficit. It's nothing to do with your metabolism being damaged. It's just a little bit of overeating, a little bit of a binge, feeling stressed, your hunger's a little bit higher, you're not moving as much, you're not eating as much to cause TEF, all adds together and you just push yourself out of a calorie deficit. So you don't actually create that metabolic damage. You're just eating more without really realising it. So what actually happens, sort of dug into it anyway, diet and stress. So your cortisol levels go up. Excessive cardio is stress. Your cortisol levels go up. Hard training is stress. Your cortisol levels go up. Once your cortisol levels rise, your digestion's worse. If you're not digesting food properly, your energy levels are worse because you're not getting the fuel sources to your muscles. And it just all compounds and you don't move as much. And then that's why you're not burning the calories that you think you are. So solutions to metabolic damage or getting stuck at that point where you feel like you're not losing weight. Take a step back. Is it time for a diet break? Have you been pushing too hard for too long? Is it time to increase your food a little bit? 1,400 calories tracked is going to beat 1,200 calories with unreported eating and secret binges. If you are 100% honestly eating 1,400 calories, you're going to progress a lot better than you are if you're eating 1,200 plus the pizza that you didn't tell your coach about. Do you know what I mean? So it's better to just have more food. Being slightly less of a deficit than you ideally maybe want to, but mentally are more able to stick to it at that point. Or even just come out of the deficit completely for a week, reset your mindset, go into it Monday, yeah, right, let's smash it, let's pull the calories back out again. And I think that may be the last slide. It is. There you go. I'll stop talking now. You're all absolutely sick to death of hearing my voice. If you have got questions, please fire away. Absolutely anything. Doesn't have to be about the stuff we talked about. It can be absolutely anything to do with health, fitness, what's going on at the minute, how to deal with being at home or anything. Fire them over. Both me and Tom will jump in with some answers.
I've got one.
Go on.
You spoke about hitting your protein target as being one of the most important things for success, but it's probably one of the things I struggle with the absolute most, because I feel like I don't crave naturally protein heavy food. So I love eggs, I love chicken, but I don't want to eat eggs and chicken all day every day. And so I really struggle, even though I'm eating, I try to add protein powder to stuff to boost that up. I struggle with trying to find foods that are high protein but low cal, so they fit in my macros but make me hit my protein target.
Yeah, I think it's really common for especially women. I find in my experience anyway, women struggle to hit their protein target. Do you know whereabout you are on the scale of protein per pound?
Yeah, so mine is about, I did it in kilograms. So on your calculation, it was somewhere between 1.75 and 2.2, but I'm around the kind of 2 mark, I think, in the MyFitnessPal calculation at the moment.
200 grams.
In grams, 154 to 122.5 to 154 grams is where I'm at, somewhere between that. Sorry, bad maths.
That's all right. You've seen how I've spoke tonight. Don't be worrying about saying things wrong or struggling with stuff. I can barely get words out of my mouth. Yeah, I would look at sort of outside the box protein sources. So like protein yogurts, yeah, actual protein sources, beef, chicken, eggs, great. But putting protein into stuff that doesn't seem like it's a protein food. So for me, oats, if I wasn't having protein oats, I'd be consuming like 3 60-gram protein shakes a day. Whereas at the end of the night, I can have I can have oats and just whack 60 grams of protein powder in there. Don't really taste it in the oats. If I haven't got the room to use almond milk, I'll just add water to it to sort of bulk, so it's not too stodgy from the protein powder.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. So like like standard breakfast for me would be like 1 sachet of those oats that you get in little sachets. Then I don't have to weigh them out. It's all done in MyFitnessPal, and then chuck 1 scoop on top. But I use the PhD diet whey oats, but you were saying like try and hit that 20 to 30 grams of protein, but that's only like 17 grams of protein or something. It's just about hitting 20 with the oats. So
just whack a little bit more in.
Okay, up it.
Just up it a little bit, just up the amount of powder you're putting in. And then again, just have a sit down, write a list of all the protein sources that you like consuming. What types of fish do you like? What types of chicken do you like? What types of meats? What types of like eggs, dairy, whatever it is. And then plan out, right, well, I need 130 grams of protein today. Okay, well, there's 20 of my oats. Okay, tonight I'm going to have a chicken breast. That's 35. I'm going to have this for my lunch. That's so many. Right, okay, well, I can put a protein shake in the evening before I go to bed or when I feel a bit snacky. And then maybe instead of just the 1 chicken breast, having like a chicken breast and a half or a chicken breast and a quarter, and just creeping it up through all of your meals rather than just having to whack in a whole other massive portion of protein.
And remember that seasoning is your friend. When you are trying to control what you're eating, seasoning is your friend. So if you know, okay, I'm going to have to eat more chicken this week, or like I need to increase the amount of chicken that I'm eating, there's 1,000,001 ways to make chicken different. Okay, so you've got marinades, you've got low-cal sauces, you've got seasonings, all that kind of stuff you can utilize just to make chicken not seem like plain boring old chicken. Couple it with different things. So do a chicken salad, do chicken pasta, chicken and rice, whatever it is. Even though chicken is your primary meat source of food, there's so many ways that you can vary it to make it seem not like a boring piece of chicken breast.
And in terms of like making sure at the end of the day you've whacked to that protein target, like if it's getting to like 8-9 o'clock at night and you're still a bit off your protein target, would you just whack a protein shake in just to make sure that you've hit that target?
And again,
I like doing Rice Krispies with a protein shake on top if I've got the calories available.
That's good.
But again, it's not, so you've got that number of say 130 grams of protein. Obviously, it's great for you to get to that 130 or over. But if you're at like 122, 120, it's not the end of the world. Obviously, try and get as close to it as you can every day, but don't be stressing out that you're like 6-10 grams short. It's not the end of the world.
But also on the flip side of that, you still got to make sure that no matter what, you're under your calorie deficit, right? So if I'm
goal to lose weight, so don't sacrifice. I mean, depending on how much it's going to push your calories over, you'll probably still remain in a deficit, as we were saying before about protein having a higher TEF. If you go over on your calories because of protein, as long as it's not like massively over, like 200-300 calories over, you'll be fine. You'll remain in a deficit just because of the higher TEF and higher protein intake. But calories, protein, try and get as close to them as possible every day.
And the only thing other thing I wanted to ask you is, like for things like MyFitnessPal, what do you do about the things that you can't track? Like sometimes it's just like, for example, this week I made my own cheese. So I don't even know where to start with that. And like that happens to me quite a lot where I'm like, I want to track it. I don't want to hide it from my trainer, but I don't know how to track it.
Well, if you've made your own cheese, you must have had some kind of ingredients list that you've made the cheese with. I honestly wouldn't know where to start with making cheese, but whatever ingredients you've used to make the cheese, I would imagine you've had to weigh them out. So, how much milk have you used, how much whatever you've used to make the cheese, just put those things in individually. And I think also in the MyFitnessPal app, you can create a meal. So you can put my own cheese and you can put in all the things that you've used. So whatever the ingredients were, the levels that you use for each ingredient, and it'll tally up and give you a value pay 100 grams for that meal or whatever it is that you've made.
And the same, would you do the same as close as you can, like if you go out for a meal? Because that's the other thing. I feel like if I go out to a restaurant, obviously I've not been stood there with the chef. Like I can only make a fair guess at that.
I would, what I say to most people, especially if your goal's obviously to lose weight is fat loss, then overestimate on things that you don't know. So if you've made your own cheese, if you can't track the ingredients, if you just log cheese and say you've had 20 grams of cheese that you've made, go into MyFitnessPal, type in cheese, find 20 grams of cheese. That's the highest in calories out of all of them, and go with that one. What I tend to find with a lot of people is they'll go on and find the one that looks the nicest. Oh, well, that cheese there's only got 4 calories in it. Oh, I'm going with that one. Just go over. It's all fat loss.
Okay.
Sacrifice calories. You'd rather be over it and be more in a deficit than pick the one that looks a bit nicer because it's got a smaller number next to it.
Okay, cool.
Same for eating.
Another thing I do, even if I think that I'm accurate with what I've tracked, if I've eaten out, I'll add an extra 100 to 200. I'll just call it miscellaneous calories. So at least then that I know. So say I've gone out and I've had the meal, I'll know, right, that's going to be cooked in oil, but I don't know what oil they've used, or they've used this seasoning or this sauce, but don't know exactly what they've used. So I'll just add in 200 miscellaneous calories. At least then I know I've covered myself for any little added extras that they might have thrown in when they've made it.
And when you do that for your other macros, do you just like put it as fat, or what do you track it as though?
I just do that purely for the calories. So just to make sure that I'm not going over my calorie target, because obviously I'm not going to know. It's very hard to know, but at least know I'm covered then when it comes to reaching that calorie target. That I'm not going over by too much.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries. Anything from you, Savannah? And pick our brain on it.
Okay, thank you. I've just been listening to everyone. It's interesting.
Okay, perfect. Right. Well, if no one's got anything else, I will say good night. We're going to do another one. Possibly, it'll probably be the same day next week or same time-ish on training. Just digging into different training approaches, touch a little bit more on home workouts and how to increase the intensity of home workouts so you don't have to go climbing trees.
Oh my god, that's not the right weirdo.
And then just general training stuff as well. So please feel free to come and join us on that one. We're doing the one after that will be on sleep and stress management. I've got a sort of guest coming in. So the lad who's coaching me, Isaac, he's an absolute nerd when it comes to sleep. So come in and do a little bit on sleep, and that'll be really interesting because he baffles my brain all the time. But yeah, thank you very much for coming. I hope you have took some information away from it. And
Totally.
hopefully see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.